Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find the coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Monday, February 23rd, 2026. I want to take you inside the Summit County Courthouse in Park City, Utah. At the defense table sits 35-year-old Kouri Richins. At her side are her defense attorneys. At the podium, about to speak to the jury, is Summit County Deputy Attorney Brad Bloodworth. His goal is to convince the jury that Kouri Richins murdered her husband, Eric Richins, on March 3rd, 2022, by poisoning him after lacing his drink with fentanyl.
The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life. More than anything, she wanted his money to perpetuate her facade of privilege, affluence, and success.
Did Prosecutor Bloodworth achieve his goal? As we go through the evidence, as always, I'd love for you to pretend that you are a juror. Do you find the evidence against Kouri convinces you beyond a reasonable doubt that she's guilty? Or is the case just too paper thin, as her defense team says?
Over the last 4 years, they've gone back to that house 10 more times. And they still can't tell you what happened early morning of March 4th, 2022.
Today's episode is part 1. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie. Have you ever noticed that your house feels stuffy? That's how I was feeling about my house, especially in the cold winter months. Turns out my indoor air was the culprit. Because as soon as we discovered Air Doctor, now the only air purifier we use in our house, the stuffiness went away and we felt like we were breathing in cleaner air. I also noticed reduced allergy symptoms in my daughter, who seems to be plagued by allergies every year, and fewer odors in the house. Here's why and how Air Doctor works. Air Doctor's powerful 3-stage filtration captures extremely small particles, about 100 times smaller than what typical air purifiers can remove. It captures airborne contaminants you don't want to be breathing in: dust, pollen, mold spores, pet dander, wildfire smoke, bacteria, viruses, odors, smoke, ozone, and VOCs, volatile organic compounds. It also pretty much runs itself. There's an auto mode feature so you can ensure optimal air 24/7. And it has a change filter reminder so there's no more guesswork at when to change it. 98% of Air Doctor customers say their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. Air Doctor also won Newsweek's Reader's Choice Award for Best Air Purifier. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code COURT to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty, and $84 value free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. That's airdoctorpro.com using the promo code COURT. Summer nights in the Chicago area, especially if you try sleeping with the windows open, are no joke. You're kicking off the covers, flipping to the cold side of the pillow every 20 minutes, and somehow your husband is completely unbothered and snoring. Or is that just me? What actually changed things for me, though, are the sheets we have. Ever since we switched to Boll and Branch, sleeping during those hot summer nights is much easier. Their summer bedding is breathable and lightweight, and here's what I love. The cooling isn't some chemical treatment or synthetic fabric trick. It's structural. It's literally in how the cotton is woven, 100% organic, specifically for airflow, and 94% of Boll & Branch customers say their sheets get softer with every single wash. And I can attest to that. We have the signature sheet set and the waffle bed blanket, and honestly, it's the perfect combo. The signature sheets have this incredibly soft, breathable feel that still keeps you temperature regulated through the night. So you're comfortable without that stiff, crispy sheet situation. And the waffle blanket is this lightweight, cloud-soft layer that gives you just enough without trapping heat. I get into bed now and it just feels different, like noticeably better sleep. Sleep cooler this summer with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/court with the code COURT. That's Boll & Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH.com/court, code COURT to unlock 15% off. bollandbranch.com/court, code COURT. Exclusions apply. Prosecutor Brad Bloodworth began his opening statements by walking the jury through what he says happened the night of March 3rd, 2022. It was nighttime, and inside the Richins home, where Kouri lived with her husband Eric and their 3 sons, the kids had just gone to bed. Kouri made Eric a drink and took it to him in their bedroom. She then left. She returned at about 3 a.m. According to what she told police, she felt Eric and he was cold. She nudged him and he didn't respond. She saw that he was stiff and pale, his mouth wide open. Prosecutor Bloodworth then walked the jury through a timeline of what happened next. At 3:06 a.m., Kouri unlocked her cell phone. She then traveled 243 feet at 3:08 a.m. At 3:10, she unlocked her phone again. Then again twice at 3:15 and again at 3:19. At 3:21, she unlocked her phone again and called 911. Paramedics were unable to revive Eric, and he was pronounced dead at 3:58 a.m. He was 39 years old. But, Prosecutor Bloodworth noted, paramedics believed Eric had been dead for a while. He said the state will prove that 2 weeks before murdering him, Kouri attempted to murder him. And weeks before that, by fraud and forgery, she took out an insurance policy on his life. He said 2 weeks after Eric died, she submitted a fraudulent claim on yet another insurance policy, which brought him to the motive. He told the jury that Kouri owned a house flipping business. She would purchase, rehab, and resell homes. He said she presented herself to friends and business associates as remarkably successful.
The evidence will prove that on the day that Eric died, Kouri Richins owed over $4.5 million to over 20 different lenders. And she did not have the ability to service that debt because her bank accounts were exhausted and her credit was exhausted. She had been taking out new loans to include payday loans to service existing loans, but her new credit was drying up. In the 5 months leading to Eric Richins' death, Kouri Richins overdrafted over 200 transactions, totaling over $300,000.
He said on the day Eric died, Kouri was scheduled to close on an unfinished and derelict mansion in Midway, and thus take on an additional $3.2 million in debt. She didn't have the financial ability to service the debt, he said, to rehab the mansion, or to hold on to it long enough to resell it. He said the mansion may appear impressive from a distance, but upon close inspection, it's just a facade. He said, on the other hand, on the day Eric died, his estate was worth over $4 million.
And the evidence will prove that Kouri Richins believed she would inherit it all. She believed that she would inherit Eric's $2 million interest in a stonemasonry business, an interest that a prenuptial agreement prevented her from getting any part of if they divorced, but permitted her to get all of if Eric died while they were married.
He said Kouri believed she would inherit the $1 million home they lived in, but that Eric owned separate and apart from her. And she believed she would benefit from nearly $2 million in insurance on Eric's life, he said, to include the $100,000 policy that she took out a few weeks before he died. He said not only was money her motive, but she wanted a fresh start at life.
The evidence will prove that Kouri Richins was chronically unhappy in her marriage. She thought that having children would make her happier, but it did not. She consulted with a divorce attorney in the months leading up to Eric's death. 3 months before Eric's death, Kouri Richins booked a $4,000, 5-night, all-inclusive vacation for her and her boyfriend, Robert Josh Grossman, at the Secrets St. Martin's Resort and Spa in the Caribbean. They were to check in the month after Eric died. Three weeks before Eric's death, 15 days before Eric's death, 1 day before the charge attempted murder, Kouri Richins text messaged Josh Grossman, "If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you. Watch a murder documentary and snuggle."
He said 5 days after the charged attempted murder and 11 days before the charged murder, Kouri texted Josh, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together. I do want you. Figure life out together. If he could just go away and you could just be here, life would be so perfect. I love you. I don't know what my deal is today. I'm sorry." 9 days after the charged attempted murder and 1 week before Eric's death, Kouri texted Josh, "I have a crazy dream. You quit your job. I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway and live in the guest house and rent out the huge house as a big event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road. Maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. And we would just run the event center as our daily job and hang out every day. Raise some kids. Have a little farm. Deal?" Just over 2 weeks after Eric's death, Kouri texted Josh a link to the Secret St. Martin Resort and Spa in the Caribbean and asked, "Are we there yet?" 1 month and 5 days after Eric's death, Kouri texted him, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Prosecutor Bloodworth then told the jury more details about the attempted murder charge, stemming from an incident on Valentine's Day 2022. 3 days prior to that, Kouri's house cleaner, a woman named Carbon Lauber, purchased illicit pills from Robert Cozier, a street drug dealer who was a friend of hers. He said she purchased the pills for Kouri and gave them to her after. He said 3 days later, on Valentine's Day, Kouri purchased a sandwich from the Mirror Lake Diner and left it for Eric. She then left and met up with Josh. At 11:33 a.m., Eric texted Kouri, "I'm going to lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm going to head to the hospital soon." Shortly thereafter, all activity on Eric's phone ceased for nearly 90 minutes in the middle of a busy workday. Once activity resumed, Eric called his 2 best friends. He sounded scared, somber, confused, bewildered, but he was okay. Prosecutor Bloodworth said a few days after that, Kouri asked Carmen if she could get something stronger. He told the jury the evidence will prove that on February 26th, 5 or 6 days before Eric's death, Carmen, again at Kouri's request, purchased pills from Robert at a home Kouri was just finishing up a rehab on. He said those pills contained fentanyl. He said Eric had several times a lethal amount of fentanyl in his blood and stomach. He said the evidence will prove that Kouri then tried to cover up her attempted murder and ultimate murder of Eric. He said when confronted with Eric's reaction on Valentine's Day, Kouri texted her friend, "It was Valentine's Day and Eric and I were both working from home that day, and I ordered lunch from Mirror Lake. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was fucking with him. Bailey was there too. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to nap. No hives, no EpiPen." Prosecutor Bloodworth said, Kouri Richins was an hour away from Eric that day with her boyfriend. Regarding Eric's death, he said Kouri wrote in a notebook that she entered their room at 3:20 a.m., and when she nudged Eric, nothing happened. She then grabbed her phone and called 911. He said she first grabbed her phone at 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 for at least 15 minutes. He said almost a year after Eric's death, when Kouri knew the police were investigating her, Kouri published a children's book on how to deal with the loss of a parent. Court Junkie is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states. Okay, so I've been on this whole spring reset kick lately. And honestly, it started with my closet. I've been trying to get rid of the more fast fashion stuff and investing in pieces that I actually like to wear. That's why Quince has become such a go-to for me. Here's what I love about them. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and super soft denim, and styles start around $50. So you're getting that elevated, expensive feel without the price tag that makes you groan at checkout. I actually have their short sleeve cashmere sweater, and I wear it surprisingly often. It's one of those pieces that just works with everything. A long skirt, a pair of jeans, you get it. The spring pieces from Quince are lightweight and breathable, the kind of thing you throw on and instantly look put together. Even running the kids around, I want to look like I tried without actually trying, if you know what I mean. And if you're looking for a new leather bag for the spring, the bags from Quince are made from 100% hand-woven Italian leather, and they look way more expensive than they are. The reason the prices make sense is that Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen entirely. So you're paying for the quality and not the brand markup. Refresh your spring wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/court for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. quince.com/court. When it was time for Kouri Richins' attorney, Catherine Nestor, to give her opening statements, she started with the 911 call Kouri made on the morning of March 4th, 2022.
911, what's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold. Okay, what's the address? 282 Willow Court. 282 Willow Court? Uh-huh. Okay, what's a good phone number in case we get disconnected? 435-671. 4987. Okay, it's going to be in Francis. Okay, tell me exactly what happened. I don't know. I just came in. I was sleeping with my kids. Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on? I don't know. I was sleeping in with my kids. I just came in our bed, and I turned over, and he's just cold. He's just cold. Who's cold? My husband. I turned the light off. And he's not breathing? No. He's not breathing? No. I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing? No. Okay, can you do CPR? No, I don't know how. You don't know? I'm going to tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR? Yeah. Okay.
Those are the sounds of a wife becoming a widow, Nestor said. She told the jury that 6.5 hours before that terrible phone call, Eric and Kouri were in that same bedroom, and they were celebrating. She said they were celebrating because Kouri was about to close on the biggest real estate deal that her company had ever done. She was about to close on something called the Midway Mansion, a sprawling multi-million-dollar home that had been abandoned before construction was completed. The plan was to fix it up just enough to resell it, and Kouri was supposed to make at least a $2 million profit for her and all of her investors. She said Eric was a part of this and was even at that property the day he died. She said Eric had also made good money that year for the family. They lived in a beautiful home with a 2-story garage that was filled with exotic animals. She said Eric was a huge hunter and went on trips all over the world, including to Mexico, 2 weeks before he died. She said they had the kind of money they were blessed with. They had a lot to celebrate. She said they also had a wonderful family. She told the jury both Eric and Kouri adored their boys. And their marriage survived through rough times, like any marriage.
They'd gone through a really bad year where they both contemplated divorce, and they did what a lot of couples do. They went to marriage counseling, they worked it out, and they decided to stick it out, and they did.
She said on March 3rd, 2022, Eric started sending excited text messages to Kouri, saying, "Hey, let's get together. Let's have some celebratory shots." She said he was excited and wanted to celebrate the big closing. Then when he got home from the property that evening, they all had dinner together as a family. Kouri's mom came by. She had been at the property earlier that day, too. Kouri's mom left. They tucked their kids into bed, and at about 9 p.m., they decided to have their celebratory shot. A friend had gifted them some Moscow Mule cups, and so they decided to try those out. Kouri made a Moscow Mule and a lemon drop shot. They had their drinks, didn't finish them, and then set their cups in the sink. At around 9:30, they were getting ready to go to bed when they heard one of their children, who suffered from night terrors, crying out. She said Kouri went to sleep with him and left her phone in the charger in hers and Eric's room.
You're going to hear the police. Kouri also told the police the day that they came to the house that she believed Eric might have had what we call a marijuana gummy. You're going to hear Eric loved marijuana gummies. He used them a lot. And the police found a whole bunch of them in the house, in his things, in his clothes, in his closet. You know, he was a marijuana gummy user. Slide 8. These are all gummies that the police found in Eric's things. Some of them, you can tell, had commercial bags where he bought them from dispensaries. Some were in clear bags that he bought from somewhere else, the location unknown.
She said after Kouri left the room, Eric was on his phone. At around 10 p.m., he was talking to a friend of his named Scott. She said Eric did not sound drunk, high, or like he was on fentanyl or anything else. There were no sounds of Kouri or the kids in the background. Eric was alert and having a totally normal conversation with Scott. Shortly after 10 p.m., around 10:30, Kouri's phone was unlocked and moved a few feet. Nestor told the jury they would hear from friends who would say that Eric was always checking Kouri's phone. She said, and you can probably see why he was doing that, based on what you heard from the state. She said that's the last thing we know for sure that Eric did that night. Sometime after that, we don't know exactly when, she said, he died. She said Eric's Apple Watch was hanging on a charger, as was his phone on the nightstand. He was lying in his underwear on his back, on his side of the bed.
So it appears pretty clear that Eric went to bed and fell asleep and died in his sleep. You're also going to hear, slide 10, that there was an empty pill bottle right next to him in his nightstand. And I want you to pay careful attention to this. The empty pill bottle expired in 2016. Made out to him for pain pills. That's going to become important later.
She said sometime after 3 a.m., Kouri woke up and came back into the dark bedroom. She unlocked her phone shortly after. She said the phone moved around the house a little bit for a few minutes. Then the phone stopped being active, which was indicative of being back in the charger. A few minutes later, the 911 call came in. She said that period of about 3 minutes is when Kouri crawled into bed, touched her husband, and realized he was cold. She then picked her phone up and called 911. Nestor said it was pretty clear Eric had been dead for several hours. She said somewhere in those 6 hours, between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., Eric Richins died.
Somewhere in that time, he ingested a fatal dose of fentanyl. What you will never hear after 4 years of investigation, where as recently as 2 weeks ago, they were back searching that house. After 4 years of investigation and 5 weeks of this trial, you know what you're never going to hear is how that fentanyl got inside of him, because there is zero evidence of that. To this day, slide 11, please, you're going to see that his death certificate, oh, that's the wrong thing, Kitty. Just take it down. Sorry about that. That's the wrong thing. His death certificate reads that the manner of his death is still unknown to this day. You're going to hear testimony that a medical examiner has the ability to declare the manner of someone's death. It can be homicide, it can be suicide, it can be accidental overdose, it can be murder, it can be anything. To this day, the medical examiner, the professional that's the head of declaring how people die in the state of Utah, has never been able to determine the manner of Eric Richins' death.
She said first responders didn't find any fentanyl in the bedroom on the night of his death. But, she said, they also didn't search for it. She said there were no restrictions on anyone visiting the house following Eric's death, that no one roped it off. And guess what was sitting in the sink, she asked. The Moscow Mule cups. She said they were never taken and tested. Instead, the nanny ended up taking them and putting them in the dishwasher the following morning.
You're going to hear the day after Eric died. Day of. They started interviewing Kouri over and over and over again about what happened that night. You're going to hear for yourselves that her explanation of what happened that night has never changed from that call you just listened to. As far as the timing, as far as what happened, never. Law enforcement secretly recorded her phone conversations for over a year after this incident. 2 years later, listening in to her conversations with her family to see if her story about what happened that night ever altered, ever changed. You're going to hear it never changed. You're going to hear that before Eric's body was even taken out of their bedroom, Kouri was told the body was going to a morgue for an autopsy. So within an hour of the cops getting there, she knew there was going to be an autopsy of his body. And what happens when you have an autopsy? You figure out how someone died. That's what doctors do. They test your blood. They test your bodily tissues. So she knew that. But did she tell the police or the medical responders or the EMS, hey, guys, you might want to check for fentanyl. My husband used it all the time. Did she do that? Because with one sentence, she could have taken all suspicion off her and made this about a drug overdose. But she didn't. As a matter of fact, she could have staged a whole drug overdose scene with fentanyl pills on his stomach and everything all over the place and say, gosh, I tried to get him in rehab for years and I couldn't. But she didn't. And you know why? Because she told her truth. She told her truth over and over again, and it's exactly what she told that 911 operator that you just heard and you're going to hear over and over in trial. I don't know what happened.
She said Eric's family simply couldn't accept that, and they needed someone or something to blame who wasn't Eric. She said that's understandable, and that no one wants to believe someone in their family behind closed doors was using drugs.
But the family's need to make sense of Eric's death went way beyond what you would expect a normal grieving family to go through. You will hear that as the detective arrived at the house, Eric's sisters spoke with the detective in the driveway. This is before anyone in the house knows how Eric died. If he had a heart attack, if he had an aneurysm, a lot of people were talking about aneurysms at the scene, and you're going to hear that. Nobody knew yet how he died. The sisters were telling the police, Kouri probably did this. Kouri probably did this. Day one. His sister Katie tells the police, and you're going to hear her testify about this, that Kouri had recently found out that Eric had put all their assets in a trust and that Katie was in charge of the trust. She's going to say, I'm in charge, and that Kouri didn't like that. She told that to the police at the scene. So Kouri already knew before Eric ever died that his assets were protected in a trust and didn't automatically come to her if he died, that there were legal things you had to go through. You're going to hear that it didn't stop there. The Richins family hired a private investigator, and you're going to see how much they paid that private investigator. And it's almost $100,000. And they paid that investigator to spend every waking minute digging up as much dirt as he possibly could on Kouri Richins to try to implicate her in Eric's death.
She said the investigator went looking for skeletons in the closet, and boy, did he find some.
You're going to hear that after an exhaustive private investigation into every single thing about Kouri Richins' life, he uncovered plenty of things that I'm quite sure she's not proud of. She's not a perfect person. She's a flawed person. I would submit we all are. But the prosecutor just turned some of her most intimate, personal correspondence into entertainment with bubbles and slides. And they're going to continue to assassinate her character throughout this trial, so get ready.
She told the jury that Eric's family and the PI became convinced that Kouri had tried to kill Eric before, on that Valentine's Day, after Eric had an allergic reaction to his sandwich. She said he had some Benadryl, may or may not have used an EpiPen, took a 2-hour nap, and then drove his kids to soccer.
You're going to hear that he had discussed with Kouri that he was going to drive the kids to soccer. So they're asking you to believe that she secretly put narcotics in her husband's food right before he's going to drive the 3 things that matter the most to her in the world to soccer. You're going to hear that that this incident wasn't even a blip to Eric. He had a professional allergy doctor that he saw very shortly after this incident. He never even brought this up. He never even talked about it with his doctor. You're going to hear that he laughed about it with one of Kouri's friends who visited shortly after. He thought it was funny. Interestingly, you're also going to hear that people who use oxycodone or hydrocodone, like that bottle said, also tend to have allergic reactions. They can have very similar symptoms if you use pain pills to the symptoms described of what Eric experienced on Valentine's Day. Here's what you're not going to see in this trial. You're not going to see one single bit of evidence showing what was in that sandwich, if he went to a doctor, if he had any tests run, because he didn't. No evidence at all.
She told the jury that the family's investigator regularly updated law enforcement and sent them everything he found, along with witnesses he interviewed. He took Eric's computer before the police even got to it, and had it for a long time. Eric's family also hired experts in toxicology, finances, and handwriting. She said they paid them all a bunch of money, and now all the experts they hired are going to testify against Kouri for the state. She said the family was in constant contact with prosecutors, right up until they decided to charge Kouri a year later.
Now, as you've already heard from this prosecutor, they're going to spend weeks in this trial trying to convince you that Kouri had reasons to kill her husband, because they can't show you that she did kill her husband. You're not going to hear a single one of Eric's family, Kouri's investors, Kouri's friends, her lover, her accountant, her broker, her lawyer, her marriage counselor, her accountants, her husband's friends, her husband's coworkers. Not one of those people is ever going to be able to tell you what happened in those 6 hours. Not one of them. You're going to hear me ask each one of them in this trial, do you know whether or not Eric Richins knowingly ingested fentanyl? Do you know whether he accidentally ingested fentanyl thinking he was taking another kind of pill and it had fentanyl in it, and he took it and accidentally ingested it? Do you know whether he mixed fentanyl with alcohol after Kouri went to sleep? The answer every single time from every single one of these witnesses is going to be no.
She said Eric suffered from knee and back pain, a lot related to his work as a stonemason. He was also a huge outdoorsman, she said. He had been diagnosed with Lyme disease and told people close to him that he suffered from pain related to it. She said he was a macho guy, however, and so he didn't share that with a lot of people.
You're going to hear that Eric was so dependent on the drugs like the gummies that gave him relief from his pain that he would even take it and smuggle it in his luggage when he went on trips out of the country and out of the continental United States when you got to go through TSA. That's how much he needed that relief. Now you're going to hear on one of the calls that they were recording when Kouri was talking to her family, she tells her family that she purchased pain pills for Eric at his request. She purchased them from a woman named Carmen that she knew who cleaned her properties for her. And she knew Carmen had access to people that had drugs. You will hear that she asked Carmen to get oxycodone. You're going to hear that oxycodone is a fairly low-dose pain pill that you can get prescriptions for. Most prescriptions for oxycodone are around the range of about 10 milligrams per pill. That's about, if your doctor gives you oxycodone, that's about what you usually get it for. If you want stronger oxycodone, like up to 30 milligrams, you generally either have to have a special prescription from a doctor or you're going to hear that you can get it on the street, right? And the state has talked about this gentleman, Robert Crozier. Robert Crozier sold higher strength oxys, up to 30 milligrams. He's going to testify that back in 2022, before Eric died, that's all he sold was oxy. That he didn't sell fentanyl at that time. It hadn't really got into the country yet, like it is now, right, where it's everywhere. It hadn't really happened yet. He was just selling oxys, and he sold the stronger dose. So you're going to hear and you're going to see evidence that Kouri asked Carmen for something stronger, and that Carmen, you're going to hear from Mr. Crozier, purchased 30 milligram oxys from Crozier. Crozier's going to say that is what he sold Carmen Lauber, was 30 milligram oxy pills. You're also going to hear that in Eric's autopsy, there's no oxy in his system. So the pills that were purchased by Carmen Lauber could not have been the cause of Eric's death. The fentanyl had to come from somewhere else.
She said Carmen will testify now that Kouri asked her for fentanyl, but that wasn't her original story, that she never mentioned fentanyl at first, only oxy. She changed her testimony after police told her they caught her with drugs and guns, and said that if she didn't say what they wanted her to say, she would go to jail for a long time. She said they told Carmen to say Kouri said fentanyl. According to Nestor, a few weeks before Eric died, he went to Mexico. Guess where the fentanyl in this country comes from? She asked the jury. Mexico.
You're going to have to decide if Kouri Richins intentionally and knowingly poisoned secretly her husband, ending the life of the father of her kids, knowing that she was going to cause those little boys to feel pain every day for the rest of their life, for the loss of their father, and that she did it for money, and that she did it for money that was less than what she was about to make on one of her own deals.
She said the defense wouldn't be disputing the facts of the case, but they sure would be disputing what the facts mean. She said the only proper verdict is not guilty on all charges. In the early morning hours of March 4th, 2022, Eugene Richins got a call from his daughter-in-law, Kouri Richins. Kouri told him his son Eric wasn't breathing. He testified that he went over to Eric's house as quickly as he could. He said his daughter Katie, Kouri's mom, his son-in-law Clint, and 2 granddaughters were there, along with first responders. Eric and Kouri's 3 boys were there too. He doesn't recall Kouri saying much, if anything, to him. He said after the funeral and before the medical examiner declared what Eric had died from, Kouri called him.
And she called me and said that she had just talked to the medical examiner and they had determined that he died of the same thing Linda did and COVID.
And Linda was your wife, right?
Linda was my wife, yes.
What, sir, caused your wife's death?
She had an issue with fungus in her lungs.
What, if anything, struck you about Kouri Richins telling you that Eric died of the same thing that his mother did?
Well, right after I finished talking with Kouri, I called my daughter, Katie, who in turn called the medical examiner, and they had never received a call from Kouri.
Your Honor.
We're going to admit this answer only for the effect that it had upon Mr. Richins to explain what he did or didn't do next. You cannot consider it for the truth of what he's about to say.
Please, sir, continue.
Help me again.
Sure.
Where were we?
What, if anything, struck you about Kouri Richins telling you that Eric died of the same thing that Linda died of?
Well, as I said, I called my daughter, Katie. Katie, in turn, called the medical examiner, and they had never received a call from Kouri. They had not even released the results from it yet.
Renew the objection and move to strike, Your Honor.
Same instruction. That answer only explains what comes next in terms of what Gene did or didn't do. May I call you Gene? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
Not for the truth of whether those things that he just described actually happened.
He was asked if Eric had the same symptoms as Eric's mom did, and he said no, not at all. Katie Richins Benson is Eric's sister. She was asked if she ever saw Eric take any pills or drugs. She said no. She testified that her dad called her on the night it happened and told her Eric wasn't breathing. She was already awake because her daughter was sick and throwing up. She and her husband gathered the kids and went straight to Eric's house. She said when she saw Kouri shook her head at her, and Katie fell to the floor, knowing that her brother was gone.
I observed that she was not how she normally was when we would go on overnights. She was very well put together. She had a matching pajama-esque outfit on. Her hair was all done up. She wasn't crying like I was. She wasn't hysterical. Just stood there and shook her head no at me.
What, if anything, did you observe about Kouri Richins' interactions that morning with her boys?
There weren't any until later in the morning. So, like I told you, my husband stayed up with the boys. I went up and down. My sister came up and down. A few people came up and down to check on the boys. I did not see her go up and check on the boys. And I repeatedly asked her, when can we tell the boys? I think we need to tell the boys. I kept coming down saying, I think the boys need to know. It wasn't until they wheeled my brother's body out, and I stood by the stairs, at the top of the stairs, to make sure my nephews didn't come out to see, because we didn't want it to see. And my husband was in the room with them. So they wheeled my brother's body out. My husband did his best. My daughter was throwing up, and he was trying to block it from the boys so that they didn't see my brother being wheeled out. The boys did see my brother being wheeled out. My husband came out and told me that they were upset. And so we walked down and talked to Lisa, Kouri's mom, and Kouri again. And I said, the boys are really upset. They just saw Eric wheeled out. I think we need to tell them. And Lisa said, I guess we better. And Kouri said, yep, bring them down. So then we brought him down. And that's the first I saw her interact with him.
Were you there when Kouri Richins told her sons that their father had died?
Yes. So my husband and I brought the kids down. We're sitting on a couch, and in my brother's living room, they have a couch that kind of goes like this, like kind of curves around. So my husband was sitting on the edge with our daughters. I was sitting next to them. Weston, my brother's youngest, that was 5 at the time, was sitting in between me and Kouri. Kouri was on the other side, and then the other 2 boys were in front of us.
What did she say?
She let them know that their dad would not be coming back, that he was gone.
Just like that?
Yes, to my recollection.
She said after she told the kids, one of the sons went into his room and was very upset. She went in, but all he wanted was his mom. She kept going out to get Kouri, and finally she had to say, Kouri, I'm not his mom. He lost his dad. He's very upset. I can't console him. Can you please go in and talk to him? Kouri finally went in and hugged him and tried to console him. She said during that, Kouri's brother's fiance, Bree, came in.
It was really interesting because Kouri was consoling, and then she immediately kind of stopped and focused on, they would call her Bree. And Bree started talking about the closing of the Midway Mansion.
Do we need to go into that, Mr. Bloodworth? I guess what I'm saying is anything further regarding that necessary to develop the upcoming testimony?
Your Honor, the state's next question will be, how did Kouri react?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So sustained. What Bree said is not admissible. Don't consider it.
Well, Your Honor, the content of the call, the content of the discussion.
Well, Kouri's side of it is not what they're objecting to. I think it's just that fact. Am I right, Ms. Nestor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're objecting to what Bree said.
Take it from there. I understand the contours here. Let's just wait for the next question.
Okay. How did Kouri react to what Bree said?
Kouri was very businesslike, very telling Bree exactly what to do, and I was dumbfounded. And I looked at Kouri and said, you can't tell me you're going to close on that Midway Mansion when my brother just died. And she looked at me matter of fact and said, yeah, absolutely. He has nothing to do with it. The money's already gone through. It's all my business. I'm going to.
What about the Apple Watch?
So the Apple Watch, Ashton, once he eventually came out of his room, he went and got my brother's Apple Watch. Kouri was standing by him. She took it from him, and he said, I want my dad's watch. So I watched her take the watch, delete the entire watch, everything off of it, and then give it back to Ashton.
On the morning that Eric died, did Kouri Richins say anything about the house that they were living in?
Yes. She told me, so the house, the 282 Willow Court that they were living in with their kids, she told me she was going to sell it.
Did anything about that strike you as odd?
Yes. I honestly could not function. I couldn't even figure out, like, what was for dinner that night. I had just lost one of the most important people in my whole entire life. And she was planning on selling the house that he had just been wheeled out of, closing on a multi-million-dollar mansion. I could not wrap my head around it.
She said when Eric died, the house he and Kouri were living in was in a trust, and Eric was the trustee. Once he died, Katie then became the trustee. She said Kouri wasn't able to sell it.
That morning, did Kouri Richins say anything about Eric's stonemasonry business?
Yes. She had a plan for how she was going to run his stonemasonry business. She was going to hire one of his best friends. His name is TJ. TJ worked for Eric's business partner's dad and had grown up working with Eric and Eric's business partner, Cody, and Cody's family in their family business. And he still worked with Cody's dad, Shannon. So she said that she was going to hire TJ to run Eric's portion of the business for her and that he would take care of all of it.
So am I right that the morning of Eric's death, Kouri Richins told you her plans on purchasing the Midway Mansion, selling the home she lived in, and running Eric Richins' business?
Correct.
She recalled a family meeting the day after Eric's death on March 5th, 2022. The purpose was to start preparing for Eric's services. It was Eric's family and friends and Kouri, her siblings, and mom.
Did you know Eric's wishes regarding burial?
Yes, my brother wanted to be buried.
As opposed to cremation?
Yes, my family is very big on burial and not cremation.
Did, in the course of that family meeting, the topic of cremation arise?
Yes, so we had gone through and planned the whole funeral. My brother would be buried by my mom, where he would be buried at, who the pallbearers would be, everything to like who would talk, who would say prayers, stuff like that. And at the very end, when I thought we kind of had it all wrapped up, Lisa Darden, Kouri's mother, said, when are we going to talk about that Eric wanted to be cremated?
Did you observe Kouri react to her mother raising cremation?
Yes, I did. She looked shocked, like she was caught off guard at first. And then she went into it and said, oh yeah, he told me that he didn't want any bugs crawling on him after he was dead. It freaked him out, so we're cremating him. And I went on to ask, I said, Kouri, why did we just do a whole entire funeral based around the casket, the burial, the pallbearers, and now you're just bringing up cremation? And she played it off and said, oh, well, isn't that what you do when you cremate them? And to that point, I said no. And then my dad started getting visibly upset because he knew his son wanted to be buried.
On cross, Kouri's attorney displayed the language from Eric's trust on the screen. It read, I wish to provide for both my wife and our children during any time that I am incapacitated after my death, and to preserve and protect and pass as much of my property remaining after my death and that of my wife to my descendants. Katie agreed that Kouri was one of the beneficiaries, along with their children, and that Katie's role was to make sure Eric's wishes were carried out. Katie was asked about what she said to a police officer outside the Richins' home.
And this is before that police officer has ever entered the house, right? This is your first time to see this officer.
I'm not sure.
Okay. And you felt it was important that this officer know that your sister-in-law had a motive? What was your reason for telling the officer that information?
I had an overwhelming feeling come over me that I should let someone know.
Why? What was your overwhelming feeling?
That I should let someone know.
Because you believed it was suspicious? The death?
Honestly, at that time, I had no idea what was going on. I just had an overwhelming feeling. I had just barely talked to my brother. He was fantastic. When I talked to him just a couple hours before, I had an overwhelming feeling I should tell someone about this, so I did.
Because you thought Kouri was behind it?
I did not say that.
Did you tell the officer that Kouri had a reason to be upset with Eric because she had found out about your being a trustee over the assets before he passed?
No, not to my recollection.
You didn't mention being the trustee of a trust to this officer?
I knew that I was the trustee of the trust.
Did you share that with the officer?
Maybe. There's a potential.
So you can't remember?
Just give me a second.
Sure. Take your time.
I mean, I did know that I was the trustee. So I definitely could have shared that with her.
And did you share with the officer that Kouri had been upset with your brother about that before he passed?
No.
So if
not to my recollection.
If an officer says you said that, that would be wrong? Or you're just not sure?
The questions are a little difficult. They're really vague. So not to my knowledge.
Okay.
She was asked if Eric shared with her that he sometimes used marijuana, and she said no. A timeline Katie gave to police that wasn't admitted into evidence was also talked about on cross. It included information on things Kouri was asking for and suggesting that Kouri may have tried to kill Eric on Valentine's Day.
Do you remember in May of 2022 suggesting with the investigating officer, that Kouri may have tried to kill your brother on Valentine's Day with a sandwich?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my brother talked to me about it.
Okay. As far as you know, had that information ever been imparted to them before you gave that to them?
I would have no way of knowing that.
Clinton Benson, Katie's husband and Eric's brother-in-law, recalled a time in November 2020 when he was with Katie and Eric called. The phone was on speakerphone, and Eric sounded extremely upset.
Did he explain to you why he was upset? I'm not asking you what he said. I'm asking, did he explain why he was upset?
Yes.
Okay. Having heard that, did you do something to assist with the situation?
I did. Yeah,
what did you do?
I knew he was on his way over to our home after overhearing the conversation with Katie. In the amount of time it took him to get from where he was to our house, I was able to pull up the Summit County website, the recorder's website, where I could pull up the property address as well as the parcel ID and be able to view all of the recorded documents against the home.
I see. And when you looked at that, did you find something that concerned you about the 282 Willow Court?
I did.
And what was that?
I found a $250,000 home equity line of credit that was taken out against Eric's house.
Did you pass that information on to Eric?
Yes.
Okay. After that conversation, that passing of that information, can you relate to us Eric's demeanor from that point?
Yeah, his demeanor was still very upset and very sad in general. So,
do you know what he did following that?
What he did following that, so we had a discussion about divorce attorneys while he was there as a result of finding out about that line of credit.
So, how did you suggest a name?
I did.
Okay. Was that on request, or were you encouraging?
It was on request, and so I mean, obviously Eric was extremely upset about what was happening, and it was just that conversation we were having where it was the next step would be to get a divorce attorney involved.
He said he became the intermediary between Eric and the attorney. Clinton also explained what he saw when he went to Eric's house the night of his death.
When you first entered the home, did you see anything unusual?
My number one priority was taking care of the kids, my two daughters as well as the boys. So I noticed some hand movements that Kouri was making, which seemed to me unusual. But
had you ever seen those hand movements before?
No.
Could you demonstrate for the jury what you saw?
Simply like that. It didn't seem to me to be an unconscious tremor, but it just almost like just an intentional movement.
Body cam footage from the first responding officer, Deputy Vincent Nguyen, was played for the jury.
So what happened today? When you say we were fine, what time did you see him when he was alert?
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work tomorrow.
Okay.
We went to bed. I went to bed with my kids. He went to bed in our bed.
What time did you guys go to bed?
9:30.
9:30? Okay.
9:45.
And then what alerted you to him today, right now?
When I just woke up, when I sleep with my kids, I'll wake up and I go back in my own bed.
Mm-hmm.
I just crawled over on his side.
And he was laying in bed? Okay.
He was on his back on the bed, and I just...
Okay.
As she's sitting on the floor with her head in her hands, Kouri makes a phone call to someone and tells them to come to her house. One of her sons can be heard calling her name as she talks to the person on the phone. "Something's wrong with Eric," she says. "The police and ambulance are here. I don't know what's happening. He wasn't breathing and I don't know." A little later, she's still on the floor, legs crossed, and talking to the officer. She tells him they eat gummies and that sometimes Eric will take a gummy before bed. She says, "It didn't seem like he did, though." The officer asks if there's any history of prescription abuse, and she says, "Well, when he was in high school and stuff, yeah, pain pills, I think." A woman who's presumably Kouri's mom tells Kouri, who's now seated on the couch, that maybe it was a reaction from his shots the day prior. Kouri says, "I mean, he said he didn't feel good from them." She says he looked pale the night before, and she asked him if he was okay, and then he said yeah, but she notes he said his chest was hurting. As for any illicit drug use, she says no. Later on the body cam video, Kouri Richins can be seen comforting her. The prosecutor asked Deputy Nguyen about Kouri's emotional reaction that night, and he said Kouri's was different than others he had seen. He described her as seeming abnormal and said she wasn't able to answer questions directly. She also kept her face in her hands as she talked. On cross, Deputy Nguyen told the jury that he didn't look for any gummies that Kouri had suggested Eric took, nor did he tell anyone else to.
Did you ask her, Miss Richins, about the gummies that she told you about, that she volunteered? Did you ask her where they were?
I did not.
You did not. Did you tell Pimentel to ask her?
I did not.
You did not. So it's not like they were hidden somewhere. You knew where they could have been. Correct?
I did not know where they...
You couldn't have asked a question? You couldn't have asked where they were?
I could have.
And you did it, right?
Correct.
As for Kouri's reaction that night, he agreed that he didn't know how Kouri was feeling and that he didn't know her or how she would normally react to something like this. Officer Pimentel with the Summit County Sheriff's Office said he didn't see any gummies the night of Eric's death either.
And at this point, when you're looking for medications, you were aware that Mr. Richins may have taken a THC gummy.
Yes, I was made aware of that.
And while you were looking for these medications, did you see any THC gummies?
No, I did not.
When you looked in that cupboard above the toilet, did you see any THC gummies?
No, I did not.
How do you know that?
I'm part of my duties on patrol is typically to look for narcotics, and so I have a lot of training and a lot of experience in locating narcotics such as THC gummies, THC products, or other narcotics and paraphernalia that goes with it.
So you're familiar with what those look like?
Yes, I am.
And if you would have seen them on the night of March 4th, what would you have done?
I would have left them where they were at, and then I would have notified the investigations team when they came in that there were, in fact, narcotics located while inside the house.
And you didn't find any?
No, I did not.
On cross, he agreed that the only place he looked for medications was in the bathroom. He said Kouri told him about the THC gummies, but he couldn't recall if he asked her where they were located. On redirect, he was again asked about the gummies.
You're looking in that cupboard above the toilet. There were no THC gummies in there, were there?
Not that I could see, no.
And you opened it up and you looked inside.
Correct.
You didn't see any weed gummies in there?
I did not.
On recross, Kouri's attorney continued to ask him about the gummies.
Now, you said we saw in the video, you were looking at the cupboard above the toilet.
Correct.
Did you look on top of that cupboard?
I do not recall if I did.
Well, that's a very high cupboard, correct?
Correct. I believe so.
So you wouldn't be able to see the top of the cupboard unless you got up on the toilet, true?
Probably.
All right. And are you aware that later that is where all the THC gummies were located?
I wasn't made aware of that, no.
Dr. Pamela Ulmer is the now retired medical examiner who performed the initial autopsy on Eric Richins. She marked the manner of death as undetermined. She said the COVID swab they did on him was positive and that he had been sick with COVID-like symptoms recently prior to his death, but that he had recovered. She said the cause of death was a fentanyl overdose. There were 15 nanograms of fentanyl found in Eric's system.
Additional information that was not confirmed but still indicated presence was naloxone, caffeine, and 4-ANPP.
Okay, so, and that's from the blood samples that were sent?
Correct. I'm sorry, because we did two different stages of testing. Okay. So this was all of the blood testing, and then after I got this testing back and we decided we needed more information, then we also had testing performed on gastric contents. And the purpose of that was to, A, determine if there were any other drugs present in the stomach contents that weren't necessarily showing up in the blood test, and then B, to give an idea of where the fentanyl might be coming from, because the question would be, was it orally ingested or was it injected, or, trying to narrow that down a little bit. Okay. And so that was part of the rationale for doing the gastric testing. So what you're doing is you're taking the information that you have and you're looking and comparing it to what would be expected in someone who's not taking the drug at all. You expect not to find any. Someone who's taking it as a prescribed medication, so you expect it to be within therapeutic range. And then once you start seeing above that, then you have the potential to go into a level that would be toxic, and if it's high enough, then potentially cause death.
Okay. And in this case, the number 15 nanograms in the blood, given its location.
So with the information available to me at the time of the autopsy, the decedent did not have a history of any kind of illicit drug use or prescription medication abuse. So the fentanyl level should have been 0. There should not have been any fentanyl or norfentanyl present.
On cross, she was asked about THC gummies in his system.
The food particle that was, you indicated that you saved it. Is that correct? Food particles?
The gastric contents?
And the gastric contents, correct.
We saved a portion of it.
Okay. And did you locate any THC gummies in there?
Nope.
Okay. Did you look for them? Should have asked that first.
I'm sure they would have melted by then.
That's fair enough.
And there was no measurable THC in the toxicology analysis either.
Chelsea Gibson, the lead crime scene technician, testified more about the search investigators did at the house. She said she found no drug paraphernalia and no gummies when she looked originally on the night of Eric's death. After investigators came back to the house in April, however, they did find THC gummies, including several packages in the primary bathroom. On cross, she was questioned about other things she found and did not find, including an old prescription bottle from 2016.
So what happened to the hydrocodone bottle that was sent with the body of the decedent?
It's under the medical examiner's office protocol to keep that until they're done.
So you don't have that bottle?
I do not know.
So all we have is a picture of that bottle?
Correct.
So it has never been taken for testing by you to anyone?
Correct.
So if there was fentanyl residue in that empty pill bottle from 2016, we won't know it because you never took it to be tested, right?
I was never given the bottle, no.
Okay.
She agreed that when they returned to the home in April, they didn't notify Kouri that they were coming. When asked why they returned to the house, she said it was her understanding that they were looking for anything that contained drug paraphernalia, or looking for something that may have been in the mail. She said they didn't find anything in the mail. Dr. Brianna Peterson is a forensic toxicologist. She testified that in the first blood sample she looked at, fentanyl was found, but alcohol and hydrocortisone were not. In October 2022, more samples were tested. In these samples, a very small amount of alcohol was found.
Around 1,900 milligrams of ethanol versus a standard drink of ethanol is 14,000 milligrams. So it's well below the amount that you would find just in one standard drink of ethanol.
She said it's also possible that ethanol can form post-mortem, especially with small amounts like that.
So this post-mortem formation can occur either in the body prior to sample collection, but it could also happen in the collection container because often they don't have a preservative that would inhibit the bacteria from doing this process of post-mortem formation of ethanol.
Is there any way you can chemically identify whether it's this post-mortem decomposition or vodka?
Not in the testing that we performed.
Also found in Eric's stomach was a small amount of quetiapine. A pill bottle of quetiapine that was prescribed to Kouri Richins had also been recovered from the house. On cross, Dr. Peterson was asked more about this.
So he had to have ingested quetiapine.
Correct.
And it appears that it was not a very high dose. You said it was probably a fairly low dose of quetiapine.
In the gastric, yes.
In the gastric. And again, the quetiapine had not made it to the blood. He died before there was a chance for the quetiapine to make its way into his blood. Correct?
There was no quetiapine above our threshold for performing a confirmation test.
Well, you couldn't measure any quetiapine in the blood. True?
No.
You did measure some in the blood.
Yes.
And where's that in your report?
It wasn't above our threshold for reporting or performing a confirmation test.
So in your report, there's no indication that quetiapine was found in the blood?
Correct.
All right. And your report's accurate?
Correct.
All right. So, again, quetiapine takes about the same amount of time to hit the blood as fentanyl, more or less, about 30 minutes?
Correct.
So a very possible scenario, likely scenario, is that he ingested the fentanyl before the quetiapine. Fair?
No.
Well, if he took them together, they would have both been in the blood, right?
That's not true. I mean, if you didn't take a dose that would lead to a concentration that's reportable in the blood, doesn't mean you didn't take it. It just means that it wasn't at a concentration high enough to be above our threshold for reporting.
On redirect, Dr. Peterson agreed there were too many variables.
Taking up where we last were, aren't there other equally possible hypotheticals, such as a drink of alcohol with quetiapine and fentanyl taken at the same time?
Sure.
Is the problem that there aren't enough, there are too many variables that are left unknown that we can't fix any of those? We can't fix the hypothetical and say one is more likely than another because there are too many variables?
Yes.
One of those is that you can't tell this jury whether the alcohol in the gastric fluid came from an alcoholic beverage or decomposition?
Correct.
And that's where we're going to stop for today's episode. Next time, in part 2, the prosecution continues to present their evidence against Kouri, including witnesses who directly advanced their theory that Kouri had her housekeeper purchase fentanyl pills for her, and then she laced Eric's drink with them. You'll hear testimony from that housekeeper, from that street dealer, and you'll even hear more of Kouri's own words. But does any of it prove beyond a reasonable doubt how exactly Eric Richins died from fentanyl poisoning? Thanks again for listening. Until next time.
At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light, and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV! Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free. The
truth is ours.
It's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.